I never imagined the fight for birth control would change history forever. I will never forget the moment everything fell apart. My heart was pounding in my chest like a drum, each beat echoing an urgency that thickened the air around me. The room was strewn with pamphlets, each one shouting about rights and choices. I looked around at my friends, their faces shadowed by fear and determination. We were just kids. How could we have known? The whispers of secrets floated through the air, raw and electric. I could almost taste the tension. It clung to me like sweat, as I clutched my trembling hands together, desperate for stability. Our dreams for the future felt so fragile, yet so impossibly vital. Every girl's face told a story. There were hopes etched in their expressions, dreams of college, careers, love. It all hung by a thread. Growing up in a world that deemed our choices illegal, it felt suffocating. My best friend Lucy, brave and bold, had once said, "If we don't fight, who will?" That echoed in my mind now, pushing me to stand taller. My mother's voice filled my thoughts too, soft yet fierce. "You deserve to choose, to be heard." And then it happened. In the quietest moments before chaos erupted, I caught a glimpse of the future bright, glowing. But it quickly turned dark. A faction of angry faces burst through the doors, shouting words I couldn't quite comprehend. Hate dripped from their voices like poison. Fear wrapped around us, a gripping arm tight around our throats. We were united yet wildly vulnerable. "Fight back," yelled Lucy, her eyes sparking with defiance. And we did. But the reality of what confronted us was harsh, brutal. They called us names, naive, irresponsible. But we raged. We marched. Silent tears fell for those crumpled under shame and stigma. The weight of uncertainty pressed against us, smothering my thoughts, and my heart raced even faster. Is this what we were meant to fight for? Or was it futile? The air was electric with tension, filled with cries of anguish and shouts of empowerment. Each voice added fuel to the fire inside of me. In the frantic chaos, my mind split, envisioning a world where choice was power, and we could breathe freely. But when the dust began to settle, I realized something sickening. Who was really pulling the strings? I caught sight of a shadowy figure lurking at the back of the crowd. Who were they? What were their intentions? It sent an icy chill down my spine as I stood frozen, uncertainty gripping me like a vice. That it was in that moment of paralyzed fear that I understood this battle was just beginning. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed felt like a surreal haze, the aftermath of that chaotic encounter settling over me like a heavy mist. Each step I took felt weighted by an invisible force, the remnants of adrenaline and fear coursing through my veins. School had transformed from a place of learning to a battleground dressed in mundane uniforms and familiar hallways, now meaningless in the wake of what we had faced. There was a deafening silence where laughter once reigned, replaced instead by hushed conversations and sidelong glances. I found solace in the corners of my thoughts, contemplating the brave faces that had stood alongside me, united beneath a banner of fear and defiance. Lucy was a beacon amidst the downcast spirits. Her voice had rallied us, her resilience mirrored in every determined stride she took. But even she could not mask the uncertainty that loomed over us. I often replayed the moments in that room, trapped in a reverberating loop, the sound of shouts and the sincerity in our pleas trapped like ghosts, unable to resolve their unfinished business. One evening, as dusk painted the horizon in shades of sorrow, I sat cross-legged on my bedroom floor, surrounded by crumpled notes and flyers. My phone buzzed with messages from friends, but they felt distant, echoing the fears I tried so desperately to suppress. "Are you okay?" A message flickered. It was Clara, her concern palpable even through the pixels. I hesitated before typing back, unsure if I was ready to share the depths of what was swirling inside. Just shaken, I finally replied, "I can't stop thinking about what happened." Before I could shut my phone off and drown myself in distraction, it buzzed again. "You should come over tomorrow. We need to talk." A small flicker of hope ignited in my chest. Perhaps it was a chance to reconnect, to rediscover the strength we had gained from that experience. I clutched the phone as if it were a lifeline, something tangible to cling to amidst the uncertainty. The following day, Clara's living room was filled with the raucous energy of friends gathering to find warmth in each other's company. It felt refreshing. Laughter rang through the air, piercing the clouds of fear that had enveloped us in recent weeks. Yet, beneath the surface, a heaviness hung, an unspoken understanding that our lives were irrevocably altered as we talked and shared stories. I began to notice intricate details, the way Lucy's fingers curled over the edges of her seat, her eyes darting toward the door as if anticipating danger, and Clara's nervous habit of chewing her lip, a dance of anxiety performed by the innocent. It was in those moments, where vulnerability reigned, that I felt the rawness of our situation, the frightening reality of a world determined to keep us silent mid-conversation. Lucy slid an envelope across the table, the weight of it almost palpable. "I found something," she whispered, her voice trembling with urgency. "I think it's important." Curiosity piqued. I reached for it, my heart racing. Inside was a photograph, grainy and faded, of the shadowy figure I had seen lurking at the protest. But this time, the figure was clearer, an ominous silhouette against a backdrop I didn't recognize. A name was hastily scrawled beneath it: Mason Holt. Confusion muddled my mind. "Who is he?" I asked, feeling the air shift, thickening with an unspoken tension. Clara leaned closer, her eyes wide. "He's a part of an activist group pushing against reproductive rights. I've heard rumors. They're planning something big." A chill washed over me like icy water. My instincts screamed that we were in over our heads, yet I felt the same fire that had ignited so ferociously amidst the chaos. "What do we do?" I whispered, my determination battling the rising fear. "We fight back," Lucy asserted, her eyes sparkling with that familiar defiance. But as I looked around the room, a wave of apprehension crashed over me. The shadows of their faces reflected the very same fears I had felt before. What if this time the consequences were even more severe? As we huddled together, our plans unfolding, I couldn't shake the lingering feeling that our fight was growing deeper, intertwining with something darker and more dangerous. The lingering question remained: could we uncover the truth before it swallowed us whole? Just as I began to feel a sense of unity wash over us, Clara's phone buzzed, a notification that instantly shattered the hope we had built. "Guys, look," she gasped, her voice trembling. On her screen was a news alert: protesters targeted in a violent counter-demonstration planned for this weekend. The air turned to ice, and the weight of our reality sank in, solidifying my certainty that we were stepping into a war that had only just begun. In that moment, the shadows no longer seemed distant, but impossibly close, and their intentions were not just unknown. They were deadly. The rhythmic ticking of the clock echoed in Clara's living room, each tick a reminder of time slipping away, bringing us closer to the impending danger we had just read about. A sense of urgency enveloped us, pushing the conversation into overdrive as we exchanged anxious glances. "We have to warn everyone," I said, my mind racing with the idea of mobilizing our friends, our allies. Yet, even as I spoke, a heavy weight settled in my stomach, the fear of the unknown clawing at me. What if our warnings backfired? What if we were seen as the instigators? Lucy, undeterred by my hesitation, leaned in closer, her voice low and fierce. "We can't let them intimidate us. If we don't do something now, it's only going to get worse." Her words ignited a flicker of courage. There was an undeniable strength in her resolve, a reminder that our shared experience had forged a bond that went beyond fear. "Okay," Clara said, her tone both shaky and resolute. "Let's plan a counter-protest. If we can gather more people, we'll show them that we won't back down." I felt the adrenaline spike, a rush of defiance coursing through me. It felt empowering. Yet, a gnawing doubt nestled deep in my heart. But what if this escalates? We saw what happened before. People got hurt. Clara squeezed my hand. We can't give in to fear. If we let them silence us now, then what was all this for? I nodded, letting her words resonate within me. Perhaps this was our moment, a chance to reclaim our voices. As we began to plan the details, an unexpected sense of camaraderie filled the air, shifting the atmosphere from dread to determination. We parted ways that evening, each of us carrying fragments of a collective hope with us. That night, I lay in bed, thoughts swirling around like leaves caught in a gust of wind. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the messages still bouncing in from our group chat. Pledges of support and nervous laughter intertwined with serious concerns, each text stitching us closer together in a quilt of resilience. With the first rays of light brushing against the horizon, I felt a shift within myself. Maybe it was the knowledge that we had each other, or perhaps it was the refreshing taste of purpose that lingered on my tongue. Could we really make a difference? But as the day progressed, unease gradually crept back in, lurking in the corners of my mind. I couldn't help but wonder about the identity of Mason Holt and the lengths he and his group might go to preserve their beliefs. That evening, while scrolling online, I stumbled across a video featuring one of Mason's speeches, delivered with fervor that sent shivers down my spine. As I listened to his words, painting those who dared oppose him as threats to their way of life, my heart raced. His followers, eyes gleaming with fervor, seemed more like a mob than a movement. The night before the protest felt heavy. As I prepared my signs and printed flyers, a knot of anxiety twisted in my stomach. I glanced out the window. The darkness outside felt thick with foreboding. Just then, my phone buzzed with a message from Lucy. "Meet me at the park in 20 minutes? I found something else," she wrote, her tone urgent. My heart sank. The ominous nature of her request sent waves of apprehension through me as I hurried to grab a jacket at the park. The moon hung ominously above, watching with an ethereal glow. Lucy waited for me, her silhouette stark against the shadows, clutching a folder tightly against her chest. "I didn't want to wait until tomorrow," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been digging. Look." She flipped open the folder to reveal a series of photographs, each one darker than the last. They showed gatherings, meetings, and files labeling them as Supreme Truth Coalition, a worrisome name that sent a chill down my spine. I felt a mounting dread as I picked up the images, each depicting Mason in the midst of the group, surrounded by a mix of members who appeared unapproachable, filled with a zealous fire that ignited a warning deep within me. "Why is this happening?" I murmured, overwhelmed by the gravity of what we were up against. My hands trembled as the truth solidified in my mind. This wasn't just a protest. It was a battle line being drawn in the sand. Suddenly, Lucy seized my arm, her eyes wide with fear but also fierce determination. "Do you see now? This requires more than just showing up. We need allies, and we need to be smart about this." But just as her words settled, a rustle in the darkness caught our attention. A figure stepped into view, and my breath caught in my throat. It was Clara, but her eyes, they were different. There was a glint of worry, of fear, but also something deeper, something unresolved. "I heard," she said, breathless, glancing between us. "I overheard someone talking about a meeting they're coming for us." As the weight of her revelation settled upon us, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. This was becoming more than just a protest. It was a reckoning that would entangle us in far greater dangers than we had imagined. In that moment, a sense of urgency consumed me. I realized that our determination had conjured an unforeseen foe, pulling us into an unexpectedly treacherous battle. The very implications of our fight for rights and voice loomed larger than life, and what lay ahead was a turbulent storm we hadn't prepared for. We stood there, weighty truths and raw emotions colliding. My heart pounded in a brutal rhythm, each beat echoing the reality that we were treading too close to a dangerous precipice. I wanted to ask what Clara had heard, but the looming shadows of uncertainty stifled my words. Instead, we huddled together, redefining our plans amid a growing dread that settled thickly around us as we prepared for what was to come. I knew with chilling certainty that our battle was just beginning. The darkness surrounding us felt alive, and just as I thought I could catch my breath, A notification pinged on my phone, bright and jarring. The screen lit up with breaking news. Supreme Truth Coalition declares war on activists. My heart dropped. We had become the very thing they feared, the resistance they vowed to quash. In the battle for our voices, we would now have to confront something far more insidious than we had ever imagined. The tension hung in the air like a charged storm, the weight of our new reality pressing down on us with a ferocity that was hard to ignore. I turned to Clara and Lucy, our breaths quick and shallow in the cool night air. Clara's face had hardened into a mask of resolve, but beneath that, I could sense the tremors of fear waiting to break free. "Did you hear what that report said?" I finally managed, my voice a fragile whisper, as though saying it aloud would give it greater power. "They think we're their enemy. We have to be careful." Lucy nodded, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. "It's not just about our protest anymore. It's about our lives." Clara stepped closer, her eyes gleaming with fierce determination. "We need to gather intel. If they're declaring war, we need to understand the enemy's moves." The tremors of impending chaos thrummed through my veins, a heartbeat that synchronized with the panicked breaths escaping our lips. The weight of Sarah's presence, mingled with the uncertainty of our situation, demanded attention I scarcely had the capacity to devote. In that fleeting moment of clarity, I realized the reminder of innocence she represented, a stark contrast to the harsh reality surrounding us. "Get inside the store," I shouted, clenching Lily's hand tighter and stepping aside to let Sarah through. Just then, a blast of noise erupted outside the alley, 2 officers barking orders, their shadows shifting ominously. The young man with us, whose name I didn't yet know, pushed his back against the wall, pulling Mia and Sarah with him. "Oh, we can't leave them," Sarah gasped, her voice teetering between despair and fury as she pointed towards the mouth of the alley where we had fled moments ago. "Sarah, we have no choice. We can't help anyone like this," I said through gritted teeth, the desperation in my voice matching the pounding rage in my heart. "We need to get out." All of us an eerie silence fell over us, punctuated only by the distant chaos still reigning beyond our fragile sanctuary. Fear trickled into the corners of my mind, echoed by the heavy awareness that choosing escape might mean abandoning those still lost in the fray. I wanted to reach back, to recognize the faces we were leaving behind, stitched together by the same fears, but the alley felt impossibly like a gate to safety and a tether pulling me away from hope. A flicker of light, a mere shard of reflected determination burst across Mia's face as she broke the tension. "Maybe we can find another way out? Something we haven't seen yet." "Another way?" Lily asked, her voice soft, yet laced with hope that barely skimmed the surface of her evident anguish. "Yes," Mia urged. "We work together. If we split up, we can fight this. That's how we stay strong together." The notion lingered in the air, delicate yet tangible. The small thread of teamwork challenged the overwhelming tide of individual despair. My heart ached realizing how desperately I wanted to believe her, but gnawing worries pulled me back to reservoir of guilt. Suddenly, the stillness shattered. Another explosion echoed in the distance, displacing reality with a blanket of sheer terror. I instinctively turned toward the street where the sounds rose and fell, feeling the pulsing energy of fear threatening to engulf us once again. "What if we could create a diversion?" Sarah interjected, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of anxiety and bravery. "If we can distract them long enough to slip through, maybe we can find more help." "I could do that. There's an old dumpster at the end of this alley." The young man finally spoke up, his voice low yet focused. "If we tip it over, it will make a racket. Just enough time for us to get away." He glanced nervously between the rest of us, waiting for encouragement. "That could work," I said, an ember of new hope igniting within me, finding their courage infectious. "But we have to be quick. No second chances." As we slipped further into that darkness, hugging the walls tightly, I felt the ghost of normalcy slip away. I often imagined this world split in halves before our lives crumbled and after, but now it was galloping full speed toward the unfathomable. I had never envisioned a reality where safety felt so far away. On 3, the young man proposed, drawing in a deep breath. 1-2 before he could finish. A thundering clap rang out, echoing off the alley walls, filling our lungs with dread. An officer's voice sliced through the air, commanding, "They're here. Secure the area." 3. I yelled, adrenaline spurring us to action as we reached the end of the alley, following the young man who hurled himself against the dumpster, pitching it to the side. The clang reverberated around us, a cacophony of violent noise, and amidst that chaos, we dove for the cover of what we hoped would be our salvation. "Go!" I shouted, feeling my heart race as we began to peel away in different directions. The heavy footsteps of officers approaching from behind growing louder with each passing second. But as we darted from the alley, desperation surged forward anew, revealing something hidden within the noise. I glanced back to where we had been. An iron gate loomed just behind the dumpster. I hadn't seen it before. "Wait," I gasped, turning to my friends. "We can't just leave. There's an old storage room. We can't catch them by surprise if we don't suddenly." A hand found my wrist, and I turned to see Sarah's wild eyes, reflecting anguish as she pulled me back slightly. "I just want to get out of here," she begged, wavering with fear. But another sound rang out, a louder clap reverberating just steps away that sent us all stumbling back, and before my mind could digest it fully, I grasped that the world we escaped turned malevolent behind us, and I was unwillingly tethered to the specter of those still lost between the lines we had drawn. "Stay close," I urged, gathering my resolve as we all faced the noise creeping closer, the shadows from the other end of the alley edging toward us. As we braced ourselves for whatever awaited beyond, a flicker of uncertainty surged through me. The decision we had made, the choice to move forward together, felt like the edge of a cliff, poised to take a dive into the abyss. And amid all the chaos and uncertainty, I realized the irony wasn't just in fleeing the unknown. It was in understanding what we left behind, a world on the brink, where lives we loved could shatter at any moment. Yet, as the doorway loomed ahead, an insistent weight of guilt pressed down, casting shadows over the fleeting sparks of defiance that momentarily flickered with hope, and I was unable to escape the uncertainty boiling within. The next choice felt like both a lifeline and a potential unraveling. What was the real cost of our escape? Would the next step release us into a semblance of freedom or into deeper despair? And as the echoes of footsteps bathed the alley with ominous promises, the answer remained chillingly elusive, leaving us at the precipice of both possibility and dread, clutching at the thin threads of unity that swayed precariously under the weight of this danger. The air grew thick with an unsettling tension as we approached the old storage room, each footfall a reminder of the stakes we faced. My pulse drummed violently in my ears, drowning out reason. Should we enter this new territory? Or was it another trap designed to further intertwine our fates with the world we thought we were escaping? "Guys, we really need to regroup," Lily said, her voice trembling. "We can't be caught off guard again." She reached for Mia, clasping her hand tightly. The small gesture seemed to fortify a sanctuary between them, a tiny flame against the engulfing dark. It reminded me of the children's books I used to read, where the simplest bonds held the greatest power to weather storms. "Let's check inside," I urged, attempting to quell my own unease. We crowded closer to the door, and for a moment, I could taste the stale air laden with mystery and risk. When the young man cautiously pushed it open, the hinges groaned as if they too bore the weight of untold secrets. The dim light cascaded into dust motes dancing in silence, illuminating the remnants of forgotten stories scattered across the room. Torn boxes, rusted tools, and an abandoned chair that rocked gently as if it still cradled the imprint of someone's departure. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah whispered anxiously, glancing back toward the alley as if the darkness could spring back to claim us at any moment. "What if there's someone in here?" Despite her fear, I could see the flicker of determination bracing her shoulders. She was more resilient than she let on, and it both inspired and terrified me. I could feel the pressure of every decision weighing heavily on me. Were we risking it all for a space veiled in uncertainty, or was this our opportunity to regroup and strategize? "We can't let fear dictate our choices," I said softly, trying to embody the courage I wish to instill in everyone. "Let's take a moment to breathe and think together. We need a plan before we act." We filtered in, one by one, hearts synchronized in uncertainty. The storage room was surprisingly spacious, but time felt as though it skipped incessantly, bringing with it a dread I feared would swallow us whole. I pulled out my phone, using the faint light to guide us. It felt futile to check for signals in the current climate, but hope is a stubborn thing, sometimes a fool's errand. Look, Mia pointed towards an old bulletin board plastered with faded flyers and hastily scribbled notes. One caught my eye: a meeting of local activists. They listed community gatherings with promises of hope, focusing on health access and domestic freedoms. For a moment, I was struck by the possibility. There were others out there fighting for the rights to carry on living, voices harmonizing against oppressive forces. What if we find them? I proposed aloud, trying to redirect our collective focus towards action. They might have the resources or connections we need. Maybe there's a way to help those we left behind. But as I spoke, I caught Sarah's expression faltering. The consternation in her eyes turned to despair, and suddenly the gravity of our mission clawed at my insides. Each of us had our burdens and, till now, I had been so consumed with escape that I hadn't paused to consider the toll it was taking on all of us. "Please don't do this," she finally said, voice trembling with emotion. "What good will it do for us to reach out when we may endanger even more lives? We barely escaped. Why would we put ourselves back in the line of fire?" The tension felt palpable, like static electric in the air. A painful silence ensued, leaving my thoughts racing to string together a response that would contain her fears. But my own heart was heavy. Holding the ache of truth, was it right to rekindle a conflict when we were scarcely past the flames? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside, snapping us back to the present. Our heads turned instinctively toward the sound, bodies rigid with alarm. "We need to hide," the young man urged, scanning the room desperately. Just then, Lily spotted a stack of old shipping crates in the corner, piled haphazardly one on top of another. "Over there," she pointed, and we scrambled to the crates, ducks in a row trying to stifle panic with invisible threads of resolve that as we crouched. The noise swelled from the alley, a distinct chaos echoing through the door we had entered moments ago. Officers were shouting directions. Their urgency intensified as if each moment stretched thin, binding them with the promise of imminent danger. My heart dropped as I strained to hear their voices, fragments of conversations cutting through chaos. "They're the ones who midstream, no time left." "What are they talking about?" Mia whispered, wide-eyed, confusion mingling with fear. And in that instant, just as the world outside spiraled out of control, an officer's voice rang clear, sending shards of ice down my spine. "They're connected to the government. They're here to destroy lives over birth control." Those words sliced through me, reverberating against the crumbling walls of my own guilt. Blood drained from my face as a gut-wrenching realization crashed into place. This was bigger than us. We had somehow stepped into a calculated storm, one that sought to unravel lives, not just our own. As the shadows of several figures loomed more menacingly in the alley, I exchanged glances with my friends, a silent pact of survival forming within the depths of our desperation. But deep inside, I questioned the safety of siding with battles fought by voices more powerful than us. Would they welcome us, or pull us further into the maelstrom? And as the unshed tears filled my eyes, the weight of our decision hung heavily in the air. A palpable reminder of all we had lost and all that we might be risking once more. In that moment, standing on the edge of fate, I could not shake the feeling that whatever lay beyond this moment would either forge our path to salvation or unravel the threads of unity that bound us. The echoes of chaos continued to cascade against the cold concrete walls as we crouched, hearts pounding like war drums in a desperate symphony of survival. I could feel the heat of fear radiating off my friends, palpable and oppressive, engulfing us as we braced against one another. The outside world had transformed into a battleground, a horror I had tried to escape, but now found myself in the thick of. Should we go out there? Mia's voice was a mere whisper, trembling with uncertainty. She had always been the heart of our group, a beacon of brightness in the encroaching darkness. Yet now even her light flickered. "We can't." Lily shot back, her eyes wide with panic. "We should stay hidden. If they find us." The thought of what could happen left my stomach in knots. Images of those we cared about haunted me. I bit my lip, wrestling internally with my instincts. What if they decide to come here next? I had to ask it. What if they're looking for people like us? Or worse, people locked away because they don't fit their idea of who gets to choose, Sarah murmured, her voice low but laced with a rage that had surfaced only moments before. This is exactly why we need to stay quiet. The fewer people know about us, the safer we are. But safety had never been a guarantee, had it? The gnawing fear of remaining trapped within these walls, while the world outside roared with uncertainty, unfurled in my gut. My thoughts flicked back to that meeting mentioned on the bulletin board, the promise of solidarity for those of us caught in the storm. But did we dare step out and seek it? With every heartbeat, waves of indecision crashed against the shore of my mind. The sound of boots marching through the alley jolted me, drawing my focus back to the present. I could sense the tension, a taut edge ready to snap. Just then, a flicker of movement outside caught my eye. Dull yellow flashlights sweeping the area like predators hunting their prey. Stay quiet, I hissed, hoping my voice could dull the collective fear we all harbored. A few moments passed, breaths held, and for a moment, I began to believe that we could simply disappear into the shadows. The jangling noise grew louder, and I felt as though I could almost see the uncertainty etched into the officers' faces, their frustrations evident in the way they barked commands. But it was one voice, smooth and authoritative, that cut through their urgency, commanding the situation with an unsettling calmness. We need to take a wider perimeter. They've been in contact with the activists who have reason to believe they might know more than we thought. My heart raced anew, the implications of those words striking me like a lightning bolt. They thought we were somehow connected, that we had ties to something bigger than ourselves. Desperation clawed at me. Actively pursuing a network of survival was one thing, but being hunted? We had unwittingly become pawns in a game where the rules were rigged against you. As I settled deeper into the shadows, invisible yet trapped, I caught a glimpse of Lily's face, the flicker of her brow knitted in an act of concentration, reminiscent of the girl who sought to read fortunes in tea leaves. Was this moment, this very hour, defining our future? Suddenly, what felt like an eternity condensed into a heartbeat. A hand landed on the door, pushing it noisily open. I gasped, my pulse quickening in panic as a familiar figure emerged, one I didn't expect amidst the turmoil. Is anyone in here? The voice was husky, cautious, yet I recognized it immediately. It was Eric, a local community organizer we stumbled upon months ago in our quest for freedom. His presence, a soothing balm amidst the chaos, ignited a flicker of hope within me. But as quickly as my heart soared, dread followed. Why had he chosen this moment, this nexus of turmoil, to seek us out? Get back, I shouted, my voice harsher than intended. You can't be here. It's not safe. Please, I need to talk to you. Eric urgently insisted. There's something you don't know. The risk? It's worse than we thought. For a moment, the rising tide of fear and uncertainty faltered. The weight of his words pushed against the atmosphere like thick fog, demanding clarity. My friends began to shift, their bodies tense as they considered the ramifications of Eric's intrusion. I hesitated. This was our chance to learn. Yet the question loomed. How far were we willing to push the boundaries of our fear? Do you understand what's happening out there? I asked, feeling the deep-seated instinct of self-preservation begin to entwine with the deep-rooted desire to fight back. Tell us the truth, and we'll decide if we're ready for it. As Eric stepped further into the room, the shadows swallowed him whole, an unmistakable air of conspiracy lingering. I sensed the collective breath of my friends suspended, each of us straddling the fine line of hope and despair. But before he could reply, a loud crash echoed through the alley, followed by shouts of urgency that sent daggers of fear spiraling through me like twisting vines. The darkness quivered as visions sharpened. The line between survival and sacrifice was about to blur, and soon would have no choice except to confront whatever awaited us in the heart of this escalating storm. In that fragile moment, with the air thick with uncertainty, I recognized the ominous evolution of our fate. The depths of peril we were plunged into were inexplicably tied into larger forces at play, and we might just be on the brink of uncovering something that could shatter everything we believed. I turned to my friends, locking eyes with them, but the familiar bonds we had forged now bloomed with a jagged edge of truth. that threatened to carve us apart. The stillness that followed the crash was electric, charged with the weight of uncertainty that threatened to flatten us. Eric stood amid the shadows, looking as if he were holding back a tempest of information threatening to burst from him. Anxiety thrummed in the air as we all locked eyes, each heartbeat echoing like a distant drum roll signaling a reckoning. "Eric, what's going on?" MIA's voice quivered, her usual confidence stripped away as though a curtain had fallen, revealing the raw vulnerability beneath. "Why are you here?" His gaze flickered past us, searching the dark corners for possible intruders, and then returned to meet mine, laden with urgency. "I came to warn you. The authorities are tightening their grip. They've set up checkpoints, surveillance, everything's shifting. If they find you, they'll take you in for questioning. You could disappear." "Disappear?" I repeated, an icy grip of fear wrapping around my heart. "What do you mean? Are they looking for us specifically?" Eric swayed slightly on his feet, and I saw the truth weighing heavily on his shoulders. "It's not just about you. They're targeting everyone associated with the activism around reproductive rights. They're cracking down on anyone who dares to challenge their narrative. I thought coming to get you might help. But how can we trust you?" Lily's voice, edged with doubt, rippled through the room. "You could be leading us into a trap." He clenched his fists, desperation painting his features. "I'm risking everything to be here. You have to believe me. There are people out there who want to help you, but you need to move." Now as a cacophony of dust and debris filled the air from the noise outside. The reality of the situation sank in. The safety of our sanctuary was fleeting, and the walls that had sheltered us so long now felt like a coffin. The chaos outside seemed decoupled from our lives, yet intertwined in ways we struggled to grasp. "Look, we don't have much time," Eric urged, glancing nervously at the door again. Before the authorities arrive, his words were cut short by another hollow crash, louder this time, and the muffled sounds of shouts crept closer. The imminent threat felt almost tangible. "Come on, we need to get out of here," I said, trying to mesh the urgency of the moment with practicality. "We can't stay in one place. If we want to survive and get to those people who can help us, then we need a plan." Lily's eyes shined with tears, flickering between hope and fear. "What if we can't make it? What if something happens to us?" As my chest tightened, I derived strength from her fragility, drawing the courage to face the unknown. "We have each other," I said softly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, though doubt gnawed at my confidence. "As long as we stick together, we can fight back. We have to." "All right," Sarah nodded, a steely determination flaring in her eyes. "Then let's go. We're not going to let them break us." With that, we gathered our meager possessions, hearts racing against the flood of uncertainty that clawed at us from all sides. But as we shuffled to the door, dread washed back over Muhat. Risks lay outside those once safe walls. What if we stepped into a hellscape far worse than before? Yet, that nagging impulsion to take a leap toward something better outweighed everything. Eric nudged the door slightly, peeking through the crack to the chaos beyond, only to pull back with a grimace. "It's getting worse. We need to move." But quietly, I took a deep breath, stealing against the cacophony that crept closer as we pushed through the door into the eerily lit alley. Instinct propelled our bodies forward. It felt as if the world was slipping through our fingers like water, but there was no turning back. As we made our way into the uncertain embrace of nighttime, fear twisted through my heart. I turned to Eric, ready to question him again, to press him on what we didn't know. But one look at his strained expression silenced me. He seemed to carry an ocean of burdens behind the confident facade. He projected an anchor weighing him down in desperate waters. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye, and as I turned my head sharply, fear exploded in my chest. A figure emerged from the shadows across the alley, cloaked in darkness, but unmistakably human. Their voice reached us, low yet potent, echoing through the still air. "Going somewhere?" My heart plummeted. The voice was all too familiar, sending shivers ricocheting down my spine. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Behind me, I could hear the collective intake of breath from my friends. The fear we had tried so hard to suppress came crashing back in full force. That it was a face we never expected to see again. A figure from our past, whose eyes glinted with a mix of menace and promise. Thought you could run? They smirked, stepping forward into the light. Oh, this is going to be fun. And just like that, we plummeted deeper into a maelstrom of danger we had feared. The weight of everything we fought against loomed larger now, a tidal wave threatening to sweep us into a fate we could not control. As the figure stepped closer, fragments of old memories surged through my mind, memories tangled with fear and resentment. The moment felt suspended in time, dread mixing with confusion. This was no coincidence. They had come for us, and now they were here, grinning, savoring our disarray. Mina, the figure said, their tone drenched in mockery. I see you've gathered your little band of rebels. How quaint. Liam, I breathed, barely able to keep my voice steady. His name spilled from my lips like poison. How had he found us? The anger rising within me was electric, almost overwhelming. Surprised to see me? His smirk widened, revealing an edge of cruelty lurking beneath. You should know by now that loyalty to the regime comes with benefits, especially when it comes to keeping tabs on traitors. I exchanged quick glances with the others. MIA's hands trembled beside me, while Lily's eyes shone with fear and disbelief. Sarah's jaw was set, but even she struggled to mask the storm of emotions swirling within her. Please, I managed, the plea barely a whisper. We're not part of your schemes anymore. We're doing this for the right reasons. Liam stepped closer, the shadows cloaking him as he laughed softly, a sound that chilled me to the bone. You think that matters? You think your righteous cause can protect you from what's coming? You're playing with fire, and soon enough you'll get burned. Why are you doing this, Liam? MIA's voice cut through the tension, bold despite her quivering hands. You can't really believe in any of this. He leaned against the brick wall, exuding an arrogant calm that belied the chaos all around us. Oh, but I do. This is about order, about control. Someday even you will understand that. I felt a wave of revulsion wash over me. This was a man we once considered part of our circle, yet here he stood, a living embodiment of everything we fought against. A part of me ached at the thought of what had transformed him. How could someone I cared for become what he was now? Let us go, Sarah said, stepping forward. We haven't done anything to you. Not yet, he replied, his voice laced with a cold satisfaction. But make no mistake, I'm here to keep you in line. And if you think you can defy the government without consequences, you're sorely mistaken. The encroaching fear spawned another layer of panic within me. Every exit I considered felt dangerous. He had positioned himself as our adversary, a predator toying with prey, and he had likely brought more than just words with him. Run? I hissed, suddenly stressing the urgency through clenched teeth, adrenaline surging through me. We can't let him take us. The moment hung heavy, charged with an unmistakable intensity. Yet, as my friends stood, torn between fear and the remnants of our loyalty to one another, I saw something glimmer beyond the chaos. Hope. Your fight isn't over. Mina. Liam hissed as I began to push the others back. Our escape guiding our instincts now. There are always watchers. You may think you can hide, but they will always find you. Enough. Eric's voice pierced the tension like a sword. We're not your pawns. We're not afraid. In that moment of defiance, something shifted. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Liam's face, just for a heartbeat of fracture in his confidence. It was enough. We turned, bolting down the alley, adrenaline pumping through our veins, hearts racing in tandem with the desire to escape whatever nightmare awaited us. Each echo of our footsteps felt like a countdown, a reminder of how close he was, how relentless the machine of oppression behind him could be. Yet, just as we approached a narrow passage that would lead us away from the chilling confrontation, another shape emerged from the shadows, an unexpected ally cloaked in the same darkness that threatened to consume us. Don't go that way, a voice shouted, urgent and familiar, pulling us from our panic momentarily. They're waiting. I could barely process who it was before the figure drew closer, their features becoming discernible. It was Julian, another friend from our pasta face that had brought laughter and light during better days. But now he carried his own burdens, eyes wide with fear. The warnings tumbled from his lips like a desperate cry for help. "They're tracking you. A patrol is closing in on all exits," he gasped, glancing over his shoulder, scanning the darkness around us. "Follow me." A glimmer of hope struggled to ignite within me, but instinct told me nothing was assured. With each moment that ticked by, the shadows felt more alive, filling with unknown threats lurking just beyond our sight. "Who are you even working for, Julian?" I demanded, attempting to shove against the swirling confusion. "Is it safe with you?" He hesitated, caught between an urgent need to help and the weight of secrets that loomed over him. "I can't explain now, just trust me. There's a way out if you move quickly." The tension hung palpably, tangled between fear and a flicker of possibility. This was our moment to decide what path we would take, fraught with the danger of the unknown, but knowing that standing still was a luxury we could no longer afford. "Go!" I shouted, urging the others forward. With hesitant resolve, we plunged into the darkened depths, moving toward a direction that could either lead to safety or seal our fates forever. There were no guarantees, only the heavy weight of uncertainty in our chests. And as we pushed forward into the dark abyss, a haunting realization settled in freedom might just be another illusion, hidden beneath layers of lies and fear. But we had to keep moving. There was no other choice. The adrenaline propelled us ahead, deeper into unknown territory, further from what we once knew. And with every step, the specter of Liam's voice echoed in my mind, a reminder that nothing was ever truly free from the long gaze of watchful eyes. "Run!" Julian urged again, his eyes darting. And together we ran further into the night, toward what we hoped would be the dawn of something newer, perhaps to our ultimate demise. The echoes of our footsteps died down, replaced by an uneasy silence that hung in the air like an uninvited guest. My heart hammered against my ribcage, exerting itself like a reminder of the intensity this moment held. Every ounce of adrenaline I had felt moments before seemed to bleed out of me, leaving behind a core of vulnerability and unknowns. Julian led the way, his presence a flicker of stability among the chaos. But as we navigated the shadowy alley, doubt flickered in the recesses of my mind like a stubborn flame dancing against a draft. Who could we trust anymore? The lines we once believed were clear had blurred into insidious gray. "We need to stay close," I whispered, instinctually reaching out for Lily's hand. She was the light anchoring me in this tempest. It felt absurd that I was still protecting her, shielding my little sister amidst this terrifying web of uncertainty. "We can't let go of each other." Mia and Sarah followed closely behind, their expressions filled with determination but laced with fear. I could feel the tension crackling around us as we emerged onto a more open street, the night air sharp and alive with the sounds of a city sleepwalking through its own despair. As we glanced back toward the alley from which Wed just escaped, I felt a visceral ache for not only our past but for those we left behind. Would we ever find a way back? Would we have to keep running, forever wary of watches that never slept? Julian stopped abruptly, turning to us with purposeful intensity. "Here," he said softly, "this way. We can hide in the old community center. There's a basement nobody knows about." His voice trembled slightly, underscoring the gravity of our situation. I could feel the collective breath among us, a hesitation pressing against the urge to move. "What if they're waiting for us there?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking as doubt crept in again like a creeping vine. I could see it in her eyes. She was struggling between the hope of safety and the weight of fear threatening to suffocate her will. Julian shook his head, eyes pleading. "I'm telling you, I was just there. They haven't found it yet. But we have to move now." The urgency of his tone shattered the fragile barrier of hesitation holding us in place. Without a word, we surged forward, huddling close as we made our way to the decrepit building. Each step was heavy, laden with unvoiced fears, simmering beneath the surface of our shared struggle. In that moment, we were not just running toward safety. We were running toward an uncertain future, toward the ghost of what once was. Once we reached the entrance, I paused, hand trembling on the rusted doorknob. What awaited us inside could mean liberation or doom. I took a deep breath, recalling moments spent under our childhood sun, with laughter ringing like music, free from fear. And that memory invigorated me, inflating the spirit of resistance budding inside each of us. "Let's go," I finally said, voice steady, breaking the tension. We surged inside, the musty air swirling around us, carrying echoes of the past that had molded us into who we were. We descended into the darkness of the basement, the cramped space barely lit by a flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling. I could feel the energy shift as we settled in, the vulnerability slowly creeping back, overshadowed by our previous desperation for escape. Lily clutched my arm, eyes wide, reflecting innocence that stood in stark contrast to the harshness enveloping us. "Are we safe here, Mina?" she asked, her voice small. My heart cracked under the weight of that question. I fought against the encroaching uncertainty, squeezing her hand reassuringly. "I think so," I said, swiping my thumb across her knuckles. "We'll figure it out together." Julian led us deeper into the basement, passing crates filled with forgotten memories, old flyers, dusty chairs perched askew. "This place is a time capsule," he murmured, glancing around with a hint of nostalgia that cut against the heaviness of our reality. "It used to be a resource center for our community before everything changed." "A place for connection," Mia added, her voice softer now. "But it feels hollow." "The past leaves echoes," I remarked, glancing at the others. "It can remind us of what we're fighting to uphold." Then a noise erupted outside, disturbing the silence, like thunder approaching in our storm. We all froze, the weight of dread collapsing on us then and there. "Is it them?" Lily's voice quavered, anticipation roiling in the air like smoke. I pressed my chest toward her, wishing to infuse some of the courage still flickering within me. "Let's stay quiet," I whispered, heart hammering, hoping to stave off catastrophe. But what if Sarah started? But Julian cut her off. "Just listen," he said, strain evident in his voice. We held our breath, straining to catch any sign of what approached the door. As we leaned into the shadows, trying to camouflage our fear, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, gone, unavoidable collision with our fate. Finally, the door creaked open. My heart raced as the figures emerged into the dim light. Fumbling through the darkness, it was Liam and a few other officers from before, their faces hard-set with unwavering determination, as if blind to the walls I had built around my family and friends. "Search everywhere," Liam commanded, voice harsh and unyielding, laced with authority. "They must be hiding." The chill ran down my spine as dread mixed with fury. The very essence of what we were fighting against filled the air with palpable tension. I weighed my options, knowing that every moment spent here in evasion risked the ties of brotherhood that had once bonded us. Suddenly, Julian ducked to his feet, his expression fierce. "We can't let them find us here," he hissed, eyes darting around the dim room. "If they do, we'll be trapped." "Then what do we do?" I hissed back sharply. "We can't run out there, they'll see us." "This way." He motioned toward a narrow space at the back of the basement, the forgotten corner where layers of dust caked the floor. I exchanged worried glances with each of my friends, a silent understanding sparking between us. We needed to decide quickly or risk being discovered. "Let's move," I whispered urgently, gathering everyone close, ready to sprint toward an uncertain escape. As we navigated through that hidden path, our hearts raced in a cohesive, frenzied rhythm, pulsing with shared anxiety and restless hope. And then it happened. Just as we ducked into the dark passage, a hand shot out and grabbed Julian, wrenching him back, the crashing sound reverberating through the emptiness, my world dimming in an instant. I gasped, reaching for him. It happened too quickly. The light felt like it faded with their loss, and those shadows welcomed an ever-deepening darkness, smothering the flickering embers of the fight that had once fueled us. Liam had him. "Got one," he called triumphantly to the officers, the vindication in his voice a cruel sting. "No, let him go." I sounded fragile, a whisper torn by fear. But Julian's cries were lost beneath the weight of authority, wrapping its claws around themselves, strangling the words of life and liberty meandering through the darkness. with terror igniting every muscle. I felt the walls of their resolve begin to swell around me, threatening to suffocate the hope within. I lunged forward, a feral instinct prompting me, but with the dawning realization that every action carried consequences. I felt helpless, spinning into despair. Then, within that crescendo of chaos and dread, I felt a fierce grip on my arm. Lily, her eyes wide as lifelines, cried, "Mina, we have to keep going." Her strength brought clarity, and the collective bond of our fight surged, propelling me. Together, I gasped, and with a surge of resolve, we pushed through the shadowy corridor, fear melding into something akin to courage as we moved forward, hearts pounding against uncertainty. Every step felt like defiance, a refusal to let them shatter the fragile world we fought for. Whatever awaited us in the darkness ahead might be unknown, but we were ready to face it, together, as sisters in arms, transforming despair into resilience. And then light. It blossomed in the distancia, faint glimmer that held promises of safety. I squeezed Lily's hand, and we raced toward it. Behind us, I could hear Liam's voice crescendoing with fury, an echo of everything we were fighting against. No matter the cost of this choice, we'd find our way back to freedom. We were sisters forged in the fire of our battles, bound by a relentless spirit refusing to be snuffed out, our hearts aligned, leading us toward the possibility of dawn. As we crossed the threshold out of that darkness, the night sky opened before us in a wash of vivid colors, revealing the first signs of a new beginning, a promise of what could be. A fight still unfinished but ignited by love and unyielding hope. And beneath that vast sky, I knew we were alive, unbroken, and burning with resolve that I can't go back. I whispered as we stepped into the light. "None of us can," Lily replied softly, squeezing my hand tighter. And as tears of defiance shimmered in our eyes, I understood. The battle might not be over, but together, we would face whatever came next, armed with hearts ablaze in our fearless belief of a better tomorrow. No one could take that from us. We were stronger together than we ever could be apart. We were united in this fight, one thread of hope woven into an enduring tapestry of love. In that moment of clarity, amidst the uproar of uncertainty, I realized we had become more than we'd ever been. We were survivors, warriors, and with a roar of indignation we would rise, reshaping our destinies together, casting a light that refused to be extinguished. Together rising, we began to chase that horizon.